My name is Kimberly. Standing in line at O'Hare with my new passport in hand and a backpack on my shoulders, I finally felt a sense of victory. For the first time since all this chaos began, nothing and no one could stop me from taking this long, awaited trip to Italy. Tessa waved at me from the check. In queue, Jordan was filming everything on his phone, and Malik and Priya were arguing about who'd fall asleep first on the plane. When the agent stamped my passport and gave it back, a simple thump in my heart said, "You're really going." But it wasn't always like this. To understand how I got here, I have to take you back to the time when my family showed me exactly what they thought of my dreams. I'm the younger daughter in a family living in Seattle. My parents, Henry and Grace, are both workaholics. My dad, Henry, is a high-powered lawyer, always buried in cases and paperwork. My mom, Grace, runs her own small business, which keeps her on her toes all the time. My older sister, Stella, is 8 years older than me. She's married to Mark, and they have a 5-year-old daughter named Lily. When Stella had Lily, I thought I was just helping out occasionally. I'd watch Lily for a few hours so Stella could go to a business meeting or have a date night with Mark. But as time went on, it became a regular thing. Every weekend, every time they had an event, I was the one they called. Stella would show up at the door, all dressed up, and shove Lily's backpack into my arms, saying, "You're not doing anything important anyway. You know how busy we are." If I mentioned an upcoming project or an exam, she'd roll her eyes and say, "Family should support each other. Do you think being a mom and running a career is easy?" My parents, too busy with their own lives, just assumed I didn't mind. The toys in my room, the kids' shows playing in the background, it all became a part of my normal life. I missed out on so many things, parties with friends, study sessions, and even job interviews because Stella would text at the last minute, "Can you watch Lily? I'll owe you." A couple of months before my graduation, after a series of burglaries in our neighborhood, my dad installed a security camera system in the house. He gave me access to the app on my phone, joking that I could keep an eye on the house while I was out. At that time, I didn't think much of it. Then came graduation day. I walked across the stage, received my diploma, and felt a sense of pride. After the ceremony, I met up with my friends at a local coffee shop. We were chatting about our future, and one of my friends, Amy, said she was worried that once we started working, we'd never have a real break again. Another friend, Ryan, joked that we needed one last big adventure before getting stuck in the 9 to 5 grind. The word just slipped out of my mouth, Italy. I told them how I'd always dreamed of seeing Florence, Venice, and the Amalfi Coast. I'd saved money for my part-time jobs, and my grandparents had left me some graduation money. To my surprise, instead of laughing, they got excited. We spent hours looking at flights and accommodations online. By the end of the day, we'd booked our flights to Florence for August and reserved a small apartment near a beautiful piazza. I was over the moon. For the first time in years, I had something that was just for me. On the way home on the bus, my phone kept buzzing with group chat messages about Italian food and places to visit. I walked into my parents' house, holding my graduation cap, with a new sense of freedom in my heart, ready to share the good news. That night, my dad grilled steaks in the backyard, and my mom set up the table with all our favorite dishes. Stella and Mark came over with Lily. We ate dinner, and my dad made a speech about how proud he was of me. It almost felt like a normal, happy family gathering. When we moved inside for dessert, my dad asked, "So, Kimberly, what's next for you?" I took a deep breath and said, "I'm going to Italy this summer. Florence, then Venice, and down the coast." There was a moment of silence. I saw Mark look impressed, my dad raised his eyebrows, and my mom's smile froze a bit. Then Stella's chair scraped against the floor. "Italy?" she repeated, as if it was a swear word. When I told her the dates, she got angry. "You're kidding, right? Mark and I are planning a family trip to Hawaii at that time. You're supposed to stay here and watch Lily." I was shocked. No one had ever asked me. They just assumed I'd be available. I said, "I've been saving for this trip for months. I thought you'd be happy for me."
Stella laughed coldly.
"Happy that you're leaving your family to have fun in Europe while we're struggling to find a babysitter? You can go to Italy some other time." My mom put down her fork and said, "Stella is right. Family comes first. You live under our roof, and you don't pay rent. The least you can do is help your sister." I felt my face heat up. I wanted to say that I'd given up so much for them over the years, but the words got stuck in my throat. I took a deep breath and said firmly, "I'm going. I've already paid for everything, and my friends are counting on me. You'll have to find another solution." The room went quiet. My dad stared at his plate, and Lily was playing with her toys, oblivious to the tension. My mom's jaw clenched and she said, "If you choose this trip over your family, don't expect us to keep spoiling you." For the next 2 weeks, the atmosphere at home was tense. Stella stopped asking me to watch Lily, and my parents were cold and distant. Every time I entered a room, the conversation would stop. I told myself they'd get over it, that once I was on the plane, they'd realize I was serious about my own life. The day before my flight, I worked a short shift at a bookstore near my college. My friends kept sending me pictures of Italian scenery, and I felt a spark of excitement every time my phone buzzed. After work, I took the bus home. When I walked in, my mom was doing paperwork at the kitchen table, and my dad was watching TV in the living room. The house smelled like fresh laundry, and I let myself relax. I went to my room to finish packing. My suitcase was open on the bed, with my clothes neatly folded. I checked my email to make sure my flight was on time, then reached into my drawer for my passport. I held it in my hands, smiling to myself. I walked to the bathroom to grab some toiletries. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. Before I could turn around, Stella snatched the passport out of my hand. I spun around and asked, "What are you doing?" She held the passport out of my reach, her eyes cold. "Making sure you know your place," she said. And before I could react, she tore the passport in half and dropped the pieces into the toilet. I was in shock. "Stella, stop," I said, stepping forward. But she just looked at me, smirked, and said, "There's no trip. Your job is to take care of Lily." My mom's voice came from the hallway. "Exactly. You should stay. Family comes first." I heard some laughter from the living room, as if they thought this was all a big joke. For a moment, I couldn't move. I saw the security camera at the end of the hall blinking its red light, but it felt like it was watching someone else's nightmare. I thought about all the hard work, all the sacrifices I'd made for them. My hands were shaking, but I said calmly, "You know that's not your decision to make." Stella rolled her eyes. "Grow up, Kimberly. You live here, and you rely on us. You are never going to just leave your responsibilities." I looked at her, at my mom standing behind her with her arms crossed, and then I turned and walked into my room. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed in my laptop, some clothes, and my wallet. I left my suitcase on the bed, with all the clothes I'd packed for Italy. As I walked through the living room, my dad looked up and asked, "Where are you going?" I said, "Out." Stella sneered, "You can't go anywhere without a passport." I didn't answer. I stepped out onto the porch, felt the evening air on my face, and closed the door behind me. I didn't have a plan, but I knew I couldn't stay there another second. It wasn't until I reached the bus stop that the shock wore off, and anger took over. I called Amy. When she heard my voice, she asked, "What happened?" I told her everything in one breath. She said, "Kimberly, that's not just wrong. It's illegal. You need to come to my place now." At Amy's apartment, when I mentioned the security camera, she had an idea. "Your sister destroyed a government document on purpose. You have the footage. You should call the police." The word police made my stomach twist. In our family, we never called the police. But then I thought about Stella's words, about how they treated me like I had no right to my own life. Something inside me hardened. I opened the app and found the footage of Stella tearing my passport. It was all there, clear and undeniable. With Amy by my side, I called the non-emergency number and reported what had happened. The next day, I went back to my parents' house with a police officer. My dad opened the door, his eyes wide in surprise. The officer explained the situation and asked to view the footage. When Stella saw the officer, she was furious. "This is just a dramatic stunt because you're mad," she said. We watched the video together in silence. When the sound of the toilet flushing filled the room, My dad closed his eyes. The officer asked Stella if she denied destroying my passport. She tried to make excuses, saying it was a joke and that I'd left the passport where Lily could get it. But the footage spoke for itself. The officer said that a report had to be filed, and there might be charges and fines. He gave me a card with a case number and instructions on how to apply for a replacement passport. After the officer left, my dad said, "We're going to talk about this at a diner downtown." 10 minutes later, we were all sitting at a table. My dad looked at Stella and said, "I've watched that video. Your responsibility is your family and your job, not to destroy your sister's dreams. You've been selfish." Stella argued. She gets to go to Europe while we're stuck with child care issues. She owes us. I finally spoke up. "I've given you years of free babysitting, missed opportunities, and canceled plans. And you repaid me by ruining my trip." Mark looked at Stella and said quietly, "You've destroyed her passport on purpose."
You didn't even tell me.
My dad then said, "The monthly support we've been giving you to help with your mortgage and Lily's daycare stops now. It's going to Kimberly for at least a year. She needs it to start her life anew."
Stella started to cry.
"You're choosing her over me," she said. My dad replied, "I'm choosing what's right. You can't keep sabotaging your sister's future." In the following weeks, the consequences hit Stella hard. She received official notices about the charges and fines. Her company did a background check and found out about the incident. She was given the choice to resign or be fired. Losing her income on top of the stop support from my parents put a huge strain on their family finances. Mark had to take on extra work, and their relationship started to crack. Meanwhile, my life began to take shape. I used the money from my parents to rent a small studio apartment. I sent out my writing portfolio to different companies, and a few weeks later, I got an interview at a marketing agency. I got the job, and it was mine with my name on the email signature, free from the constant demands of my family. When my new passport arrived, I held it in my hands, almost afraid to open it. Inside was my picture, my name, proof that my future was still mine. I sent a photo to my friends, and they were overjoyed. We decided to push the trip back a bit to give me time to settle in. At my parents' house, things changed. My mom started calling me more often, and her voice was softer. The first time she came to my new place, she brought groceries and cleaning supplies. She said, "I know I was wrong. I was so focused on Stella's struggles that I forgot about yours." Stella stayed away at first. Sometimes she'd text me, asking if we could talk. When I replied, I told her I hoped she was getting help and that I wasn't ready to go back to being her free babysitter. As summer turned into fall, my days were filled with new routines. I took the bus to work, wrote taglines, and had lunch with my colleagues in the park. In the evenings, I'd cook dinner in my studio and look at pictures of Italy, counting down the days until my trip. Now, standing here at O'Hare, I know that family doesn't mean sacrificing your dreams. You're allowed to have boundaries, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up for yourself and chase your own happiness.